Welcome to Medicaid Mastery, a cut above explaining the real long-term care Medicaid system.
Welcome back to Medicaid Mastery, where we break down the real rules behind long-term care Medicaid. I'm Evan Mack with Antony Turbeville. Today we're discussing Medicaid spend down mistakes. Today's episode is avoiding Medicaid spend down mistakes, what families need to know. Tony, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Evan. Good to be back.
We talked about it kind of on previous episodes, but, when people were spending money and things like that. But can you kind of, break down what spending down means in the context of qualifying for Medicaid?
Sure. So it can be viewed negatively or positively. When a nursing home talks about spend down, it's negative. And here's what I mean. They'll say, okay, this person has $140,000. It's $14,000 a month for easy math. Spend down your 140. When you get to zero, we'll apply for Medicaid. So what they're saying is spend it on the service we provide, leave nothing for your family. That's a spend down. That's a negative spend down if you ask me, right? So the other way to view it is spending down that 140 that's in the countable asset category and turning it into a non-countable asset that still has value that the family can still keep, but doesn't count when calculating eligibility for Medicaid. So we're just shifting it from one pocket to another.
Wow. So what are some of the common mistakes, though? Families make, they're trying to spend down assets. What are their missteps?
So a very common misstep is I took the money that was in mom's bank account and I moved it to my account, right? I gave it away to myself. The reason that doesn't work is because they're going to look back 5 years and they're going to say, did you give any money away? And this is a question on the application in the last 60 months. And if you say, yes, I did, then they're going to calculate a penalty period that will dictate how long it's going to be before you can actually qualify for benefits. So that's a huge mistake. Sometimes people will tell them, well, you can buy a new car. And there's nothing wrong with buying a new car, but it's financially not the smartest thing to do when there's many other options. So they'll run out and buy mom a new car. And, if you're going to spend $60,000, it's better to spend it on an appreciating asset that doesn't count than a depreciating asset that nobody really needed. It's hard to say what all they are because people do some crazy things.
Yeah.
What's important to know, and they do it with good intent, they've been given misinformation or whatever. I'm not knocking anybody. And I always tell people when they come in here, look, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to save every last dime I can for you, right?
Yep.
So people just need to know no matter what has been done, no matter how complicated, no matter how convoluted, that's our thing. We do complicated. So we will unwind, fix the problems that were created, and then protect the assets that were originally intended to be protected. And I will tell you, it's not really a mistake that people make here, but as people get older, they get more generous with their kids if they have it to be generous. And so they'll start giving away money with no anticipation of needing long-term care. But Medicaid is mandated to consider any gifts in the last 5 years as having been done to qualify for Medicaid. So if you can prove to them it wasn't done for Medicaid, then they won't give you a penalty period. But how do you prove it, right? It's subjective. It's up to them. We don't like to ever leave anything up to Medicaid. We want to know when we go in how it's going to be viewed. So we would much rather just fix the gift, and I'll explain that in a minute, and then protect the asset that was created by fixing the gift. So for example, mom gives away $50,000 to 3 kids. So there's 150 grand gone. She just knew she wasn't going to need it in her life and wanted to be nice to the kids. 3 years later, she has a stroke, needs nursing home care, and Medicaid says, well, you're penalized for it'd be roughly 14 months. So she can't get benefits for 14 months because you gave this money away. Well, generally the kids spent the 50 grand, right? Most of them didn't put it in the bank and keep it. So they can't give the 50,000 back. And the way you fix a gift in Florida in most cases is you return the gift. Well, if you don't have the gift to return, is there another way to do it? Yeah, you can give something else of equal value. Well, What if you give them back a promissory note that counts as an asset, and there's certain wording that makes it count as income and certain wording that makes it count as asset, but we give a 50,000 promissory note back to mom. Okay, 3 kids do it. We've now returned the 150 grand as far as Medicaid's concerned. Now we just have to get rid of that promissory note that was created when we fixed the gift, which there's a lot of ways to do. So that's not a mistake. Mom was just trying to be nice, but it is a fly in the ointment when we go to apply for Medicaid that we just have to fix. And again, not to overstate it, but it's hard to overstate it. We can fix whatever it is that you did to mess it up, intentional or otherwise.
What about ways to reduce assets? Are there safe ways to do that without triggering Medicaid penalties?
Sure. So I think I have about 32 different strategies, which we don't have time to go through today. But to give you kind of a highlight, 4 small things, you can buy prepaid funeral plans. Go ahead and get those out of the way because everybody's going to have to be buried, right? And this is a little strange, and I don't know why anybody would do it, but the Medicaid rules actually allow a person to prepay the funeral of just about anybody loosely related to them: aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, kids, grandkids, whatever. Now, I don't know why anybody would do that, but you can do that. Certainly for you and your spouse, you should do that. You can buy a new car. You can buy used cars of your kids. So, for example, you can have as many cars over 7 years old as you want. Well, if you got 20 grand to get rid of and your son's got a truck that's 8 years old, but it's still worth 20 grand, just write a check for 20 grand to your son. Your son puts your name on the title as an or, which doesn't interfere with his ability to buy, sell, do anything else with it. You're not creating liability for the son because mom's not out driving it, right? Son's not creating any liability for mom in most cases because she's broken on Medicaid, right? Even if he has a wreck. So you can do that. You can buy into a child or somebody else's home on paper, right? So you transfer money to them, you get back a percentage interest in their home. Then you put the percentage interest up for sale, which nobody's going to buy. I mean, we would get way in the weeds if I tried to explain all these in depth, and people are going to be going, well, wait a minute, that sounds kind of weird. I need to know more. Call us. I'll be happy to explain the more where we have time. This isn't the venue for it. You can do promissory notes. There's income promissory notes and there's asset promissory notes. Income promissory notes, they have to be substantially equal payments. They have to be non-cancelable, non-transferable, and actuarially sound. So substantially equal payments, self-explanatory. Can't transfer it to somebody else. Can't cancel it. The person you owe the money can't just say, don't worry about it. Actuarially sounds mean it has to pay back as much as was lent over the person's life expectancy or less. So in other words, you can't do a 20-year promissory note on somebody with a 10-year life expectancy, right? But once it meets those rules, they don't say you have to make monthly payments. So you can do an annual payment, right? So they don't count anything for 12 months. So whatever asset you lent under that promissory note is a non-issue for the next 12 months. Now, when the 12 months rolls around, if mom's still with us, we can rewrite that promissory note, much like going to the bank and borrowing $100,000. The year comes up, it's due, you can't pay it, and they go, don't worry about it, we'll pay that loan off with a new loan. Kind of the same thing, right? Buys us another year. You can do what's called a personal services contract. I am not a fan. This is a standard operating procedure for most attorneys, not the attorneys we work with, but a personal services contract is where the state says you can be paid for doing all the things you do for mom or dad because they're mom and dad and you love them and you do it for free. State says you don't have a legal obligation to do it for free, so you can be paid to do it. And you can be paid in advance for doing it for the rest of their life. So you just take, here's how many hours a week I'm going to spend roughly doing this, $25 an hour, some reasonable rate, times a number of hours, times 52 weeks a year, times the life expectancy of the person. And you can just transfer that much money to them. Here's the problem, and why I'm not a fan is it creates self-employment income for the person who receives it in the year in which it's received. So if you get $100,000, you now have to report $100,000 on your tax return, and you have to pay 7.65% Medicare, Medicaid, FICA taxes for you. And now you're also self-employed, so you got to pay the other side of it. So there goes 15.3%. Now you got to pay your tax. Let's call it 25. Now you're at 40% tax, or you're going to commit tax evasion. And unfortunately, that's what most people do, right? They just don't report it. Well, that's fine unless you get caught, and then it gets really, really ugly. So I don't like personal services contracts, and there is usually another way to do it. And if that's the, only option or one of two options that you get from an attorney, you probably should keep shopping, right?
Mm.
Because there's a lot of ways to do this, and they ought to be explaining, 4 or 5 or 6 different ways that you can accomplish what you want to. And if they're not doing that, they don't really know this business.
So how can working with someone like you or someone at Platinum, help families avoid these costly missteps?
So when you come to us, we're not going to give legal advice. We can't do that. We're not lawyers. But what we are going to do is we're going to explain to you all the different ways we could get your application approved through the Medicaid application system. Now, whether you should do it or not, that will be up to you and an attorney. And we will refer you to several attorneys that we've worked with for, in some cases, decades, right? That really know and understand what we do. When we explain everything, generally the client, they already figure out in their mind which one they're interested in. We then, explain to the attorney the different things we talked about. We leave the room. We let the client have a private conversation with the attorney that they call on their phone. They make the contact. And then when they're ready, they call us back in, and the attorney will go, okay, they're going to do intra-family real estate buy-in. They're going to assign this account, and they're going to take the income off the rental property through, in this case, a personal services contract, but that's where you're protecting income, and it does make sense. And then we just go through the administrative process of fixing anything that's been messed up, gathering all the paperwork, gathering all the verifications. And this is a huge thing that I want to point out. Most attorneys, and listen, I'm not speaking of all attorneys. There's exceptions to everything, but most attorneys will tell the client, they'll give them a list and say, go get me all of this information, bring it back to me, and then I'll take care of everything. Well, the problem is, it's a spouse, let's say, and she's 85 years old, her husband's in the nursing home. She's got this long list. It's overwhelming. It's hard for her to accomplish that. With us, we're going to write all the companies where she has or he has assets or income and get the verifications for them. Everything that can be done for them, we're going to do. What we can't do, then they have to do, but we take a huge load off of them, right? So working with us, you're going to reduce your administrative burden. We're going to fix problems that might have been created that many other people don't know how to fix. At least maybe not in the most efficient way. And then we're going to protect assets in a way that we look at 3 things that we're always trying to accomplish. And we only work with attorneys who look at it the same way. We want people to keep liquidity. So if there's money in the bank or money in a brokerage account or whatever, we don't want to turn that into real estate. A lot of attorneys will do that. They'll use these prepackaged real estate programs designed for Medicaid. The problem is it takes all the money and it ties it up, right? Family doesn't have any cash anymore. They got this piece of real estate, but that doesn't solve their problems. We want them to keep the cash, and we're going to use strategies that's going to help that cash stay available to the family in case they need it. We're going to make sure that they keep control of all of the assets, whatever they are, and we're going to make sure that they don't pay taxes, right? Now, there are cases where they're going to pay some tax, but they're going to know that up front, and it's going to be minimal. Most of the time, it's going to be zero tax. So there's plenty of strategies you can use that don't create a tax situation and don't tie up the cash. So if they're not doing those 3 things, they're probably not doing the best job for you. So liquidity, control, and zero tax. That is a beautiful plan when you accomplish those three things, which we do probably about 97, 98% of the time. Now, keep in mind when I say we do in conjunction with the attorney. The attorney decides what is the appropriate legal strategy for the family to use. We just educate the family about how all the different strategies work. The attorney and the family determine which one makes sense for them.
So what should families absolutely not do without, someone knowledgeable on these matters?
You should not do what you think makes sense. Make the application, because what's going to happen is they're going to ask for paper. And even if you're super efficient and you give them everything they want, you follow all the deadlines and all that, the problem is the very last thing they do before sending you the approval NOCA, which is a notice of case action, is they run, and I think it's called an IVES or EVES or something like that, an income and asset verification system report. And it's going to go out to all the banks within a 50-mile radius, the smaller banks. It's going to go to all major U.S. banks, the Banks of America and all that stuff. Many of the life insurance companies participate, and they're going to search for assets. And if they find an asset that you moved and you didn't move in a way that's okay, and you got to prove to them, they're going to assume you moved it the wrong way, right? You got to go back and prove you did it the right way. And if you can't do that, then they're going to deny the benefit. And particularly in a nursing home scenario, that may be 6 months. Could be 3, could be 6, but it's not going to be 1. It's not going to be 2. It's going to be longer. And then when they deny it, that you can't go backwards and get the benefits for nursing home or home health care or assisted living. So you're now out however many months you lost because you did it wrong, right? So I always say to families, look, it's not about what it costs you to do this. It's about what it costs you to not do it. And then if you do it with somebody who doesn't keep those 3 rules in mind, right, and you have to pay a bunch of tax, it's not about who's the cheapest fee. It's about who does it in a way that your family walks away saving the most money possible after considering fees and taxes and all the stuff, the bottom line walk away money. Who helps you get the most? And that's who you should hire.
So to wrap things up, Tony, what would be some advice for someone trying to help their parent qualify for Medicaid without knowing all of these rules?
Find somebody that knows what they're doing. It really is. That's what you got to do. There's just too many caveats.
Yep.
It's kind of like saying, I'm going to fix my own car. Well, you can do it and you'll eventually get there, but you'll spend a lot of time and energy, and you'll probably spend more money than you would have paying somebody that knew what they were doing to begin with, right?
Absolutely.
Now, flip side of that is if you hire the wrong mechanic, you may get there better than you would have on your own, but not as fast and quick and efficient as somebody who really knew what they were doing.
Tony, thank you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you.
Good to see you again.
All righty, guys. Thank you for listening to Medicaid Mastery with Tony Turbeville. For personalized help navigating Medicaid planning and eligibility, visit platben.com. That is PLATben.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review for all this great information. Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.